Go ahead, Martha.
Good morning. Greetings, good people. My name is Martha Childs. I'm a longtime member of First Church Unitarian and currently serving on the standing committee. I'd like to call your attention this morning to a jam-packed community matters. There are deadlines, recommendations, invitations. Two of the events are happening today. I want to mention them particularly. One is the cottage meeting at 11:30, produced by the Grain Sanctuary Task Force. This is the last opportunity to learn about some of our infrastructure issues. And the other is an interfaith gathering this afternoon, which you might want to check out. You can find details in Community Matters. Also, there's some breaking news. I heard this morning that the yard sale that happened yesterday raised $2,500, which will be going to Honduras and Ghana. Thanks to all who participated. And I think that's it. Enjoy the service. Welcome to church.
Good morning. My name is Molly Lozeau, and this is Natalie. I'm the music director, and she's the assistant music director. And we'd like to introduce the Prelude today. You'll be hearing a song called Terra's Theme, also known as Tina, from Final Fantasy VI, which is a video game. I'm taking the theme of becoming for myself this month as to show you more about what I'm interested in music. So you're going to be hearing things that I like to play and other music that I like. So this piece is beautiful. It's one of my husband's favorite pieces, and I think it's a beautiful piano piece, even if you don't know the video game. So here is Terra's theme on piano.
All that we have been separately and all that we will become together is stretched out before and behind us. Like stars scattered across a canvas of sky, we stand at the precipice, arms locked together like tandem skydivers, working up the courage to jump. Tell me, friends, what have we got to lose? Our fear of failure? Our mistrust of our own talents? What have we got to lose? A poverty of spirit? The lie that we are alone? What wonders await us in the space between the first leap and the moment our feet, our wheels, however we move our bodies across this precious earth, touch down softly on unknown soil? What have we got to lose that we can't replace with some previously unimaginable joy? The words of the Reverend Leslie Ahuvah fails. Let us worship. Now is the time in our service, an important time when we light our chalice and say the words of our covenant. We don't have a common theology, we don't have a creed. What holds our congregation together as much as anything are our covenants or agreements. And this is our primary congregational covenant that we say each week. And we are led this morning in lighting the chalice and saying these words by Madelyn Hammer.
Love is the spirit of this church, and service its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
Thank you, Madelyn. So good morning and welcome to First Church Unitarian here in Littleton, Massachusetts. My name is Lara Hoke, and I'm so happy and lucky to be the minister of this incredible congregation. If you're new with us here this morning, we welcome you. We're so glad that you found us. And I hope that you will join us again. If you want to learn more about us, you can go to our website, fculittle.org. There's a lot of information there. Or you can scroll down on that homepage and you'll see a purple box and you can click there. We call it our virtual pew card. You can fill out information there if you want to be contacted by somebody here from the congregation, including possibly me. So consider doing that. This morning, we are continuing on with the Soul Matters theme for the month of April, which, as Molly mentioned, is becoming. And so we're going to think about that from another angle this morning. We made it through Holy Week in the Christian liturgical calendar and Easter last week. And these are what are known in the Christian liturgical calendar as normal times. I always like that, normal times. So just a little edification for you if you didn't grow up in that tradition. All right, let's go ahead and sing our opening hymn, which is a good one for April and the theme of becoming. Molly has kindly recorded it for us, and you'll see the words on the screen. It's number 7 in the gray hymnal, The Leaf Unfurling. Thank you so much, Molly. This is a time for all ages, and if you have children or youth where you are, come on up, bring them to the screen so they can hear the story. A little background for those of you who haven't been online with us this year. So about a year ago, we began to be joined in our virtual worship services by a very special guest who found us somehow, to our great luck, from across the ocean in Vienna, Austria, or if you prefer, Wien, Österreich. And she's been great. We've loved having her with us online. And she volunteered to share a story. And so I'm happy to say that our story today is coming to you from Vienna, from Alessandra Ranelli. Enjoy.
Hey everyone, I'm Alessandra, and today I'm going to read you a book called Nerdy Birdy, which I don't really relate to the story that much, but I'm going to do my best. And before I get started, hold on one second. Okay, that's a little bit better. I also brought somebody with me, actually 2 people, well, birds. This is Ichabod, and he is going to play the part of the eagle, but he's just going to sound like me. And this is Flurf. He's going to play the part of the cardinal, but also just sound like me. Anyways, let's get started. Nerdy Birdy by Aaron Reynolds. This is Nerdy Birdy. His glasses are too big. His wings are too small. He's allergic to birdseed. When all the other birds are hanging out together at the bird feeder, Nerdy Birdy is scrounging for breadcrumbs. Eagles, cardinals, and robins are the cool birdies, with wind tunnel-tested head shape, an impressively sculpted chest muscle, and abs of steel. You see the eagle over here. And the cardinal with its glossy red pompadour, glossy red attire, and also glossy red tail. Here's the robin, beady eyes with superior worm vision and worm-fed physique and feet, which have nothing to do with worms. 3 things eagle is good at: hunting, football, and fishing. 3 things cardinal is good at: singing like a rock star, posing, and attracting fans. 3 things robin is good at: picking on worms, insulting worms, and eating worms. 3 things nerdy birdie is good at: reading, playing video games, and reading about video games. Eagles, cardinals, and robins don't care about reading. Hey guys, I just read the coolest book. Who cares? Bookworm. I eat bookworms for breakfast. Or video games. Hey guys, I just defeated the Earthworm King in World of Wormcraft. Who cares? I eat real earthworms, not digital ones. Nerd. One day, Eagle flew off to hunt. Cardinal flew off to impress fans, and Robin flew off to terrorize worms. And Nerdy Birdie was alone. One thing was clear: it was awfully lonely not being a cool birdie. Why do you hang around with them? They don't even like you. But they're so cool, said Nerdy Birdie. Trying to be cool is exhausting, said the new bird. You should hang around with us. Us? Us! After all, there's always room for another Nerdy Birdie. Their glasses were too big, their wings were too small, at least half of them had birdseed allergies, they all liked to read, and most of them liked to play World of Wormcraft. They were exactly like Nerdy Birdie. And then he realized something. There were way more nerdy birdies than cool birdies, and now they were all his friends. Eagle didn't have any friends. Eagle hunted alone. Cardinal was always showing off. He had no friends. Know why? Because he was always showing off. Robin was too obsessed with worms to make friends. One thing was clear: it was awfully lonely being a cool birdie. But then a new bird moved into the neighborhood. The cool birds were unimpressed. Hey guys, she gives me the creeps. Why does she always wear black? It's so depressing. She eats what? The cool birdies flew away and left Vulture alone. Why would you want to hang around them? Being cool is exhausting. You should hang around with us. Us? Us! After all, there's always room for another nerdy birdie. Right, guys? Hold it. Where are her glasses? Where is her lightsaber? And have you heard what she eats? Blah! She is most definitely not one of us. Nerdy Birdie was confused. But there's always room for another nerdy birdie, right? That's the problem. She's not a nerdy birdie. She's just weird. Nerdy Birdie looked at his flock of friends. The telephone wire was packed with them. He looked at the new bird, sitting there alone, and one thing was clear: it was awfully lonely being alone. This is Nerdy Birdie. His glasses are too big, his wings are too small. This is Vulture. She wears contact lenses, her wings are enormous. Vulture eats dead things. Nerdy Birdie does not. Nerdy Birdie likes video games. Vulture does not. Nerdy Birdie and Vulture don't like all the same things, but they really like each other. If you ever need a friend, you can hang around with them. After all, there's always room for another birdie. Nerd. That's the end. I hope you guys had fun.
Thank you so much, Alessandra. That's great. So appreciate you doing that. First time, I'm sure, in the history of this congregation, which started in 1714, that we had a time for all ages coming to us from Austria. I'm sure it's true, although I should check with Joyce just to be sure. This is the time for our offering. This is a time each week where we ask you, our members and friends, if you can, to share the gift of treasure with us. And this happens each week, once a week, unless we're having a Share the Plate Sunday, which we will have next Sunday. But ordinarily, and these are normal times, as you heard, we have an offering for the good works of this congregation. So if you are able, we ask that you make an offering this morning, or perhaps send in part of your pledge payment to First Church Unitarian, and you'll see the address there. And it helps if you put Assistant Treasurer on it, so Prizzle sees it. And that's also our web address. And you can donate online. There's a yellow donate button that you can click and learn the ins and outs of donating online if you wish to do that. If you're new with us this morning, please do not feel obligated to make an offering. Consider this service as our offering or gift to you. This morning's offering will now be given and received in grateful appreciation.
You'll be hearing music by myself and past guest Rebecca Jeffries on flute. This is called Cantilene, and it was played for an offertory a couple years ago, and you get to look at our beautiful quilt as we play.
That was lovely. Thanks so much for sharing that. Okay, I'm going to start off with a couple of different things for this sermon. First, a quick thought exercise, and then a quick survey. So I encourage you to play along at home. For the thought exercise, and I'm using recycled material here to be ecologically conscious. This is did I write that? Yeah, it looks backwards on my screen. I hope it looks right for you. It's Roman numeral 9. I'm seeing a Roman numeral 11 on my screen. I don't know what you're seeing. No, you're seeing a 9. I'm just seeing it now on YouTube. This is very strange. Okay, the trick is to, with one line, turn this Roman numeral 9 into a 6 with just one line. Can you figure that out? Turn the Roman numeral 9 into a 6 with just one line. I'm going to give you a couple minutes to think about that, but while that's churning in your head, and don't give the answer away if you've seen that before. While that's churning away for you, a quick survey. And this would be fun if we were in person. I would love to do a show of hands, but we will have to trust you to do it on for yourself and be honest about your answer. Maybe write it down if you have a pen to solve the Roman numeral 9 to 6 problem. Write down your answer so that you're not cheating. Okay, I'm going to ask 6 questions. And the way this works is you have to pick one choice. You'll have choice A and choice B, and you have to pick one. You cannot say your answer is neither, and you cannot say your answer is both. It's a forced choice, one or the other, okay? So, first question. Choice 1, I love cats. Choice 2, I love dogs. Cats, dogs. Okay. Second question, the Beatles or the Rolling Stones. One or the other, the Beatles, the Rolling Stones. Next question, I love the beach or I love the mountains. Pick one, beach or mountains. Next question, vanilla or chocolate. Pick one. 2 more questions. Okay, the first choice, I'm an introvert. Answer this for yourself, not for me. First choice, I'm an introvert. Second choice, I'm an extrovert. Pick one. And finally, the glass is half full or the glass is half empty. Have you made your choices? Cats or dogs, Beatles or Stones, beach or mountains, vanilla or chocolate, introvert or extrovert, half full or half empty. Okay, now let's go back to the first thought problem. How do you make the Roman numeral 9 into a 6 with just one line? There are at least 2 possible solutions. One is 6. And there's at least one other solution, which is Roman numeral 9. 1 times 6 is 6. So those are at least 2 possible solutions. Don't know if any of you got that. Now let's go to our survey. Okay. Interestingly, according to some studies, there are some fascinating correlations from your answers, from your choices. If you picked cats, you're more likely to have picked vanilla. If you picked dogs, you're more likely to have also picked chocolate. Another correlation, if you picked the Beatles, you're more likely to see the glass as half full. If you picked the Rolling Stones, you're more likely to see the glass as half empty. And one more, if you love the beach, you're more likely to be an extrovert. If you pick the mountains, you're more likely to be an introvert. Now, I don't know if those correlations held up for you, but it's pretty interesting. And some of those correlations are almost intuitive. There is, however, just one small thing about this survey, and that is that I totally made it up. That is completely bogus. There are no studies like that to my knowledge, and the results just came out of my own head. I made that up completely. And yes, that's 2 minutes of your life, 3 minutes of your life you can never have back. Today, we're going to think about categories, the meaning of categories, and how they might help us or hinder us in our quest for becoming. Often, people don't like to be categorized or labeled or put into a box. Several years ago, I heard a good program on National Public Radio, an episode of a program called Invisibilia, which I have often enjoyed. And they did a show called The Power of Categories. And it has really stayed with me, even though it's been something like 6 years. My sermon today owes a debt of gratitude to the show and its hosts, Lulu Miller and Alex Spiegel. If you take nothing else away from this sermon, please take away this much. Categories are indeed incredibly powerful. So a minute ago, we did that thought exercise when I asked you to turn the Roman numeral 9 into a 6 with one line. And I showed you two possible solutions, the S in front of it, making it 6, or the number, the normal, our system of numbering, Arabic numbers, 1 times 6 is 6. Okay, so why was that hard to figure out? Why was that even challenging? Well, for one thing, you made the category of line probably into a straight line. And so making an S, which is a squiggle line, probably didn't occur to you. But I didn't specify that the line had to be straight. The other thing is, even more powerfully, I started off with the category of Roman numerals. And so you wound up stuck in that category, most likely, if you had trouble solving it. You wanted to make the Roman numeral 9, 1x, into the Roman numeral 6, as in VI, or V1, the Roman numeral 6. But I never said to make it a Roman numeral 6. The power is that you were starting in the category of the Roman numeral box and you wanted to stay there. And as the hosts of Invisibilia put it, once categories are set, boy, do we obey them. The other thing about the power of categories is that if we let categories define us, as we often do, there's a part of us that almost enjoys being in a category if we get to pick it ourselves, right? Like Nerdy Birdy enjoyed being a nerd there for a little while. A few minutes ago, I asked you to pick a category for yourself. Beatles or Stones, vanilla or chocolate. And it was kind of fun, I think. I enjoy those sorts of things. It happens all the time on social media. If you're on Facebook, how often have you taken the most ridiculous quiz to see, for instance, what kind of dog breed would you be if you were a dog? I'm a French bulldog. Or what character would you be on Gilligan's Island? I'm the professor. It's silly, but it's fun, right? It's almost irresistible. And I enjoyed telling you the category I fell into. But as Invisibilia pointed out, many of us have the urge to clearly differentiate ourselves and to declare our category. So that's a pretty normal thing. It's kind of fun to do. In the case of the questions I asked at the beginning, the ones I made up, it's fairly harmless. But what's interesting, and sometimes more insidious, is that, as they said in the program, right below the surface of any category is, quote, a whole world of qualities associated with what it means to be a cat person or a dog person. So, was it pretty easy for you to believe my completely made up cat people are more likely to pick vanilla, dog people more likely to pick chocolate, or my made up Beatles fans are more likely optimistic, Stones fans are more likely pessimistic? Think about that. It's so easy to make judgments based on a category somebody is in, even if it's a category as silly as, I prefer vanilla to chocolate. And so that can be used in a very hurtful or harmful way, in some cases, the things that we associate with different categories. And in this way, categories can be a part of oppression, negative stereotypes attached to numerous groups. Another thing to notice is it's fun to think of categories for most of us when we get to pick our own category or when we find one that fits. It's probably a little less satisfying if you feel that, as an unimportant example, neither one fits, right? That's one issue with somebody picking categories for you. So for instance, when I gave you the choice between cat person or dog person, and some of you love both, or I suppose some of you loathe both, then that's a little less satisfying because you were forced to make a choice that didn't work for you. But that's not a big deal in that case so much. But there are other categories where it is a very big deal. Possibly the most fundamental categories that society has created, the way we have formed things in our society, is male or female. That's the first question most people ask when a baby is born. Is it a boy or is it a girl? And from that distinction, as Invisibilia noted, very different life choices and experiences can follow. Often, or certainly it was common just several years ago, when many people thought of a transgender person, they thought of somebody transitioning from one of the society-enforced fundamental categories of male or female into the other. So it was common not so long ago to hear transgender person and think of somebody who was either what we used to usually say MTF, or male to female, or somebody who was FTM, female to male. Those were very common terms. Today, the preferred terms are usually transgender woman or transgender man. But this reality hasn't fit all transgender people. So there are times when being a transgender person means that somebody doesn't fit into that gender binary of male or female. And so today, we might be a little bit more aware of this reality, that there are non-binary persons, or sometimes called agender persons, or there are different terms and ways of experiencing that. Sometimes a non-binary person will use the personal pronouns they or them. Others might use alternate pronouns like ze, zer, gi, ger, and so on. Invisibilia shared the story, or rather, somebody came on to share their story. A person named Paige, who uses female pronouns, and Paige shared her story. It was quite poignant, and I would recommend the program to you to hear Paige, if nothing else. And Paige's experience was that she found herself flipping between those fundamental categories of male or female. And she spent her first 30 years living as a man. She had been in the Navy, and she had been seen as a very masculine man at that. And she had some early inklings in her life that maybe she was female, but she never did anything about it and went through life in the early years as a male. But in young adulthood, Paige found herself flipping back and forth between feeling and knowing in her heart that she was a woman and feeling and knowing in her heart that she was a man. And she was experiencing this flip multiple times a day. It turns out Paige is not alone. Others have had this experience as well, and they are people who move back and forth between the category of male and female. And Paige eventually, thanks to the internet, found a category that fit pretty well, and the category is called bigender. And it was immensely comforting, as Paige tells her story, immensely comforting just to find that category. Nothing about Paige had actually changed. Nothing about her experience had actually changed. But just finding a category that worked pretty well brought some relief. As noted on Invisibilia, when people don't fit into the category options, it's scary, it's disturbing for that person and sometimes for others too. When she had no category, Paige said she felt like a monster. And that's so sad. That was the word she used, monster. Until the category was named, some of the people hearing Paige's story didn't even believe her experience was real. Think how hard, how lonely that must have been to feel like she didn't fit into any category, like no one understood. And as they noted on the show, living in a category, even one like transgender woman that faces discrimination and oppression, is ultimately easier to navigate than having no category at all. Once you have a line drawn around you, as the host of Invisibilia put it, you get some real relief. In society, it seems sometimes that we need categories. It would be very hard to be a fully functioning person in the world without having any categories. Invisibilia noted that there have been studies done that show that even 4-month-old babies can learn categories. It seems to be a basic part of our development, along with object permanence and other more celebrated developmental milestones. You need to put objects into categories to cope up to a point. Otherwise, you'd have to figure out what everything was kind of from scratch all the time. So for instance, if you didn't have a category of chair in your mind, then every time you saw some new type of chair that you hadn't seen before, you'd be thinking, what's that? Is it safe? Is it a threat? Is it alive? Instead, you see a new kind of chair and you have no worries, and you might even sit in it just as intended. The trick is, what categories are helpful and when? When can categories be helpful and when can they be harmful? We can categorize categories, I suppose. There are those biological categories, state-imposed categories, self-imposed categories, and more. The thing to realize is that, in a sense, all categories are human inventions. The whole concept of categories is our own invention. And so categories can help to navigate the world, but ultimately they are all human constructs or social constructs. And it's important to regard them with a hermeneutic of suspicion, as scholars like to call it. So when you see things being put into categories like race or gender or age or any other human category, it is worth asking, whom does this category serve? And does this category create an oppressed group? Because categories often come with hierarchies. One category is good and another is bad. As one primary example, as we have been talking about for some time now in some depth, thanks to our Racial Justice Action Committee, the social construct of race, and particularly the invention of whiteness, has been used to bring privilege and power to some people at the expense of other people. Categories can quite literally be a matter of life and death. Think of non-human animals. Animals categorized as pets or even wild animals are imagined to have traits of lovableness or nobility. And when they are mistreated by humans, we are outraged, usually. Animals categorized as livestock, particularly in a system of an impersonal factory farm, are seen as more expendable. They aren't seen as lovable or noble. They are seen as food, really. And that's part of our culture, just the way things are right now. And categories can be a matter of life and death for humans, too. One of many possible examples is that when a human has been categorized as an American or an American citizen, and they're killed by a US drone strike, for instance, overseas, there's outrage. There's a call for investigations. But when a human categorized as an Afghan citizen or some other non-US citizen is killed by a US drone strike overseas, it's barely newsworthy. It's, again, just the way things are. So this can really be a matter of life and death. A couple more points about categories. Some of you might remember the classic 1997 book, Why Are All the Black Kids Sitting Together in the Cafeteria by Beverly Daniel Tatum. As the Invisibilia program noted, it can be very satisfying to surround yourself with other people who are in your category. Honestly, it might be very satisfying for us sometimes to be surrounded by other Unitarian Universalists even, right? I know at General Assembly each year, our annual meeting, to be surrounded by other Unitarian Universalists feels like a treat. And sometimes there's a real need met in groupings, like an all-women's group or an all-lesbian group or what have you. It might be a place where you feel uniquely relaxed or free to be yourself. But even then, there are complications. Sometimes people get excluded from those groups in hurtful ways, harmful ways. And there's also the complication that, for instance, being on a US college campus, let's say, and having a Latino students or Latinx students group or an Asian students group seems just fine, seems reasonable and useful. But would it feel just fine on a North American college campus to have a Euro-American student group? So there are lots of power dynamics in different categories based on society that can't be overlooked either. Bottom line for us, as Unitarian Universalists, we say that we affirm and promote the inherent worth and dignity of every person. That's our first principle. It isn't possible to affirm fully and promote fully the dignity and worth of others if we are not mindful of categories and the resulting hierarchies and institutionalized oppressions. Some people long for a day when, for instance, the only race people see is the human race. That day seems to be a long way off. This is not currently a colorblind society, far from it. So as long as Black lives are treated as less than, it will be necessary to declare that Black lives matter. Human categories are likely to be with us in some manner, always. It's our job to pay attention to them, to be somewhat suspicious of them, and always to be mindful of the ways that they can be used against us or others. When you put yourself into a category, ask, is this helping me to become a better person? Is this helping me to become my truest, best self? Or is it holding me back? Ask the same question when you notice yourself putting somebody else into a category. Is it helping that person to become more fully what they're meant to be? Is it helping them to blossom? Is it a category that they would have chosen for themselves or one that's being imposed on them? Is it just some sort of box to hold someone back? Is this categorization making somebody less important or more important? Is the line I'm drawing around myself or the line I'm drawing around someone else giving real relief? Or is it boxing myself or someone else in? These are some of the questions to ask us as we think about categories and whether boxes are becoming. May our wisdom and compassion guide us. May it be so. Blessed be, and amen. For our closing song, I picked something that we sang together a couple of years ago, just really to do with the time of year it is, and hopefully a more hopeful stage we are in terms of vaccinations and the pandemic. So I hope you will enjoy hearing and maybe singing along to our closing song, which is I Can See Clearly Now. The words will be on the screen. Friends, it's time for our closing words. And as has become the tradition now that we are worshiping virtually, if you are in a room with somebody and you can safely hold hands, I encourage you to do that. Otherwise, if you're alone in a room, as I am alone here in the sanctuary, I encourage you to put your hands together to feel that warmth as we hear our closing words. What brings more life? What brings more light? What choices for yourself, for others, help them in the process of becoming? We are in the season of blossoming and becoming. May we be filled with loving kindness and compassion toward ourselves, toward the people and other creatures that we meet. May we be filled with loving compassion and kindness even for our earth. May we all become what we are truly meant to be. May it be so. Blessed be, and amen.
And our prelude today comes from composer Bela Bartok. Again, it's a piece. He's a composer that I like playing, but his music is thought of as kind of weird and kind of strange, and so maybe not appropriate for all settings. But this piece in particular comes from a collection of songs he wrote about children. And this one is just kids playing outside, basically. So this is a fun piece by Bela Bartok.